The office looked ordinary. Glowing screens, clicking keyboards, scattered papers. But for Eva, every day felt like a silent war. Across the room, Daniel's stare pierced deeper than words, his smirks louder than shouts. In a place built for progress, she found herself drowning in poison disguised as laughter. Eva wasn't born with shortcuts. She carried no powerful last name, no wealthy connections waiting to open doors. What she had was simpler, a stubborn belief that if she worked harder, stayed later, and gave more than anyone else, eventually someone would notice. While others left the office when the clock struck 5, Eva's chair remained filled. Her desk lamp burned long after the building was dark. The hum of her computer, the only sound keeping her company. She dreamed, but she dreamed quietly. No grand speeches, no self-promotion. She let her work be her voice. And in those silent hours, she imagined a future where her ideas built something greater than this grey office. But dreams, in a room, filled with doubters, are fragile things, and in that same silence a shadow already watched her, waiting for the first chance to break her spirit. Every story of struggle has a face behind the pain. For Eva, that face belonged to Daniel. In the bright conference room, he played the perfect colleague. A polished smile, smooth words, the kind of man people trusted too easily. But once the doors closed, his mask slipped. Daniel turned the office into a stage for cruelty. If Eva suggested an idea, he shot it down with a joke sharp enough to draw blood. If she stayed late, he whispered that she was desperate, chasing approval she'd never earn. And slowly those whispers spread. A single mocking laugh from him became the tone the whole office followed. Eva wasn't just fighting her workload. She was fighting a storm of doubt he created around her. Every step she took forward, Daniel's voice dragged her 2 steps back. He wasn't content. The boardroom smelled of fresh coffee and cold nerves. Eva walked in with a stack of papers, clutched to her chest, her heart pounding like it wanted to escape. This was her moment, the chance to prove she belonged, the chance to let her quiet nights of hard work finally speak. Her voice shook at first, but grew steadier as she unfolded. Her idea? Bold, fresh, a vision far beyond the stale strategies the company recycled every year. For a heartbeat, she believed she had lit the room with possibility. Then Daniel leaned back in his chair, lips curling into that familiar smirk. "This is childish," he said, his tone slicing sharper than any knife. A few chuckles followed, then outright laughter. Her words, once alive, now hung lifeless in the air. Eva stood frozen, cheeks burning, dreams collapsing before her eyes. In that instant, she realized, talent meant nothing if the room had already chosen sides. After that boardroom collapse, time moved differently for Eva. Each morning felt heavier, each step into the office slower. The same walls she once believed would protect her dreams now felt like a cage tightening around her. At the coffee machine, conversations died the second she walked in. Smiles faded into awkward glances, as if speaking to her might cost them their own place. The sound of laughter across the office wasn't just laughter anymore. To Eva, it was echoing judgment. Even the printer's hum, steady and cold, seemed to mock her presence. Daniel didn't need to strike again. His work was done. With one cruel remark, he had planted a seed of doubt that grew into silence from everyone else. That silence cut deeper than words. Eva realized she wasn't just facing one man's hate. She was facing an entire office that had chosen not to see her pain, not to defend her, not to believe in her. And so she sat at her desk, surrounded by people yet utterly alone. The office was silent, emptied of voices, emptied of life. Only the flicker of fluorescent lights remained, buzzing faintly above Eva's desk. Her hands hovered over the keyboard, a resignation letter glowing on the screen, half-written, half-hearted, but almost finished. She had replayed the same thought for weeks. Maybe they're right. Maybe I don't belong here. The words stung, but they also felt like relief. Walking away seemed easier than waking up to another day of ridicule. Her eyes blurred as she read the unfinished letter. A single tear rolled down her cheek and fell onto the paper she had scribbled notes on, spreading the ink into a dark stain. That tear broke something inside her, but not the way she expected. In that fragile moment, Eva realized quitting wasn't the answer. She wasn't crying because she was weak. She was crying because she still cared, because deep down she knew her worth. That tear didn't mark the end of her fight, it marked the beginning. That night, Eva didn't press print on her resignation letter. Instead, she opened her browser and typed a single word: opportunity. Page after page of articles, forums, and videos appeared. And in that endless scroll, she stumbled into something new: digital marketing. A world no one in her office even talked about. While others slept, Eva studied. Her apartment became a library of glowing screens, sticky notes, and scribbled plans. She devoured tutorials, traced strategies, and tested ideas with the patience of someone who had nothing left to lose. The same venom that Daniel poured into her every day now served as her fuel. Every insult became another late night of research. Every smirk became another line of code, another ad tested, another plan refined. Her pain no longer drowned her. It pushed her, it sharpened her. What began as quiet curiosity turned into obsession. And in that obsession, Eva found her fire, a fire she would carry far beyond the walls of that office. By day, Eva played her role in the office, quiet, steady, enduring the smirks and the whispers. But by night, she became someone else, entirely. When the city fell asleep, Eva's apartment lit up like a command center. On her second-hand laptop, she built piece by piece, a simple website, a social page, the beginnings of her brand. There were no investors, no cheering crowds, no mentors guiding her way. Just cheap coffee cooling beside her keyboard and the relentless hum of her old machine. Every click, every line of text, every design she patched together carried her heart. She didn't announce it to anyone. This wasn't about proving herself to Daniel or winning the office back. This was hers, fragile, untested, but alive. Daniel's laughter echoed in her memory, but Eva had stopped listening. While he mocked her daily in the office, she was already building a world where his voice would never matter. And though she didn't know it yet, those quiet nights would become the foundation of her future empire. The office was alive with chatter that morning. Daniel at the center, his laughter bouncing off the walls. To him, it was just another day of being the loudest voice in the room. But for Eva, everything was about to change. Her phone buzzed, just once, a soft vibration on her desk. She glanced down, expecting another meaningless notification. But instead, there it was, her very first client. A name, a message, and a payment. Small, barely enough to cover groceries. But it wasn't the money that made her chest tighten. It was what it meant. It meant her long nights weren't wasted. It meant her idea had weight. It meant someone out there believed in her enough to pay. As Daniel's laughter filled the air, Eva lowered her head, hiding a quiet smile. She didn't need the office's approval anymore. The world outside had just whispered, "Keep going. Success doesn't stay hidden for long." As Eva's small wins quietly stacked up, whispers began to drift through the office. A client here, a project there. Her late nights were no longer invisible. And Daniel noticed. He couldn't stand it. The same woman he'd mocked, belittled, and cornered was building something outside his reach. And so he did what he did best, poisoned the air. With a smile, he told anyone who would listen that Eva was cheating the company, stealing time, stealing resources, betraying the very place that paid her. It didn't take long before HR called her in. The sterile room, the cold expressions, the sharp questions. "Are you using company hours for personal business? Do you understand the consequences?" Eva sat frozen, her heart pounding. In that moment, her fragile empire, the nights, the sacrifices, the tiny proof of her worth, balanced on the edge of collapse. The verdict came fast, colder than she imagined. "We're letting you go." No second chances, no understanding, no space to defend herself. Just a decision. Final and cruel. Eva's desk, once her corner of quiet hope, was stripped bare. Into a cardboard box went her notebooks, pens, and a photo frame she had kept to remind herself of better days. Around her, the office buzzed as usual, but the silence aimed at her was different now. Colleagues who once smiled politely avoided her eyes. Some even looked relieved, as if her fall made the room safer for them. And Daniel? He stood in the distance, arms crossed, satisfaction hidden beneath a mask of false concern. The war he waged had ended, and he had won. Eva walked out of those glass doors carrying more than a box. She carried the weight of betrayal, not just from Daniel, but from every voice that stayed silent, every hand that never reached out. She left broken, but not defeated. What no one realized then was simple. Endings have a way of becoming beginnings. The sting of betrayal lingered as Eva stepped into the sunlight that day, cardboard box pressed against her chest. But outside those glass doors, something else waited. Freedom. For the first time, she had no chains to answer to, no office politics to suffocate her, no Daniel to silence her voice. She went home and turned her pain into strategy. Every insult became fuel for another pitch. Every sleepless night became a campaign built sharper than the last. Her tiny projects grew, her name spread, and one by one clients arrived. Within a year, Eva's client list doubled. She no longer begged for approval, people sought her out. Within 2 years, the woman once humiliated in a boardroom was signing contracts that brought in millions. The empire she built wasn't born from luck. It was born from ashes, from wounds, from a promise she made to herself the night she almost quit. I will rise. Years later, the stage lights shone down on Eva, no longer the quiet dreamer in the corner of an office. She stood tall, the keynote speaker at a global conference, her name now synonymous with success and resilience. The room erupted in applause before she even spoke a word. Among the crowd, slouched in the shadows, sat Daniel, jobless, forgotten, stripped of the arrogance that once defined him. He looked older, smaller, a ghost of the man who once controlled every room he entered. Eva's eyes brushed past him, not with bitterness, but with quiet triumph. She didn't need revenge. The applause crashing around her was enough. Every clap was proof that her silence had turned into a roar. The tables weren't just turned, they were broken. Eva had risen so high that Daniel's hate couldn't even reach her anymore. Eva's journey reminds us, hate is not always a wall. Sometimes it's the fire that forges strength. She turned venom into vision, rejection into rebirth. Remember, this when the world doubts you. Hold on, rise higher, subscribe now. Your spark may be waiting in the next story.